Body shots, more pressure, right straights, more aggressive counters. There was a lot of things about Strickland that not only would have helped him win this fight a lot more handily, but the openings were all there. They were all presented. It was just waiting for Strickland to capitalize. What kind of openings were there? What were some of the mistakes that maybe Sean Strickland made? And what could he adjust if there is a rematch going forward? Strickland's main weapon was the jab. He was working off the jab the entire time. And Dricus Du Plessis early on did not put any kind of pressure until like the last half of the first round and onward. And the pressure got exponentiated all the way into the fourth round. And then in the fifth, Strickland started to go toe-to-toe with Dricus and was actually being successful. So that's one thing in this fight. Strickland was waiting a little too much, and I think off of his actions of letting Dricus kind of miss his wild punches and then just getting away from him or not pouncing on him for counters every single time Dricus got off balance, throwing these winging punches, it showed to me that Strickland was waiting for Dricus to kind of gas himself out, slow down a bit before he gets aggressive with his own offense. I mean, look how off balance Dricus gets. Look how many times he switches stances and gets squared. It's happened so often in the fight. Even at one point, he swung so wild without even looking at his opponent that he almost ran headfirst into the cage, and Strickland didn't even get on him. Strickland did not reverse the pressure. He actually went to the center of the cage instead. This right here told me, okay, Strickland is waiting for Dricus to gas up before he gets more offensive, because this sequence right here should have absolutely have gotten countered. There was one point in the fight that Strickland did counter this overly aggressive blitz. So Dricus comes in switching stances for that right uppercut, and Strickland is framing off of him, posting with that lead hand to keep distance. He makes a couple back steps into a counter right straight. And look at Dricus' stance afterward. His legs are narrow, his hands are down, he's very squared, with his left foot a little bit forward, completely open to this right straight that gets through the center even though he looks to block it. And then Dricus goes and tries to counter him with an overhand. You saw that often in the fight. When Dricus got hit clean, he would always return with a shot of his own, not looking at the target and throwing this wild overhand that completely misses. And then there's another counter opportunity for Sean Strickland. But Strickland respected the power so much that he didn't look to counter this one. That right overhand is powerful, but it's so wild and untechnical. There's a lot of different strikers that would have countered him for something like this. And he gets out of position again, offsets himself, throwing that overhand right. I mean, look, he's literally in a horse stance in front of him. Like, there is nothing he could do at this position to stop a punch from hitting him in the face or the body. Strickland started to get a little bit more aggressive in the fourth and then a lot more aggressive in the fifth. And you saw in the fifth round, he was successful going toe-to-toe with Dricus, the more powerful striker. And it's mainly because of the way that Dricus throws his punches. A lot of the punches he was throwing were very wild, overhands, and not even looking at the target when he does it. And for the first 3 rounds, Strickland kind of allowed him to get away with that. And also, Dricus' punches got a lot cleaner in the 4th and 5th rounds. He was throwing a lot more straight punches, tighter shots in the 5th round than he was in the 2nd and 3rd, whether Strickland was in front of him or from distance too, which gave more opportunities for Strickland to win those first 3 rounds pretty handily if he actually went to counter this and not allow Dricus to get away with that. Because a lot of other counter punchers, if they saw Dricus throw punches like this at them, he would have absolutely paid for it. And I know Strickland could have done it as well because he did it in the 5th round, even though Dricus' punches got a lot cleaner. What could he have done though? Well, Dricus was actually very open to counter overhands on himself when he would throw overhands first. Because of how wild and off position he would get when he throws these punches, Strickland would be able to duck under them and throw big punches himself, landing successfully. And he doesn't necessarily even need to do that. There's other things he could have done as well that he did a couple times throughout the fight. One time in the 4th round where he was beating Dricus' overhands with his straight punches. Jab and right straight. Boom, right there in the center. Dricus does not have his eyes on the target, so he doesn't really know what's coming at him. And he gets beat by the right straight. This could have happened many times in the fight. But the thing is, Dricus did adjust to this later and he started throwing straight punches instead, right? He wasn't throwing as wild with his overhands when he started getting hit by that right straight, and he knew that Strickland was going to stand his ground in front of him in those later rounds. So that was one big thing going into this fight. The other one was, we know the jabs were very successful. The right straights could have been as well. If Strickland was more offensive with his straights after his jabs, he would have had a lot more success because a lot of times he threw them, he would land. Not every time, right? There were moments that Dricus was able to defend them, but many times when he threw that right straight, they were landing pretty clean, and it's because of the way Dricus holds his defense. Dricus' main main defense is that guard. He doesn't move his head too much, especially when he's in orthodox. In southpaw, he's more willing to move his head to the left, lean to the left and slip on the outside of the straight. But with the orthodox stance, he kind of stood his ground more squared to Sean Strickland, and he can't lean to the left as well as he can southpaw. It's not as natural. So he kind of just sat in the middle there with a high guard, and many times there was that opening through the center. That's why Strickland was able to land the jab throughout the whole fight, even while Dricus had his hands up. Because Dricus' parry is just not that good, right? He had a very hard time finding that parry, even in the southpaw stance, which should be easier for him. The jab always got right through, and if jab can get through, he can get the right straight immediately behind it to land on the same exact spot. Just turning the shoulders a little bit more inward, and he would be able to land those. And not only that, you saw many times that jab would offset Dricus into the left angle. So look at Dricus' stance before he gets hit by the jab, and now look what happens to his stance after he gets hit by the jab, as Sean moves to his left to create an even better angle for the straight. He's leaning on his back foot, and his upper body is angled to his own left. This is perfect for that right straight to get through that center. This happened many times throughout the fight, but Strickland never went to the right straight, which he could have, and magnified the damage that he was already inflicting. The body shots were open all fight too. Strickland is usually known to headhunt. Occasionally, he will go to the body on his opponents, but with how open Dricus' body was the whole fight, it would leave a lot of people questioning at this level of the game, championship level fight, in a division that's filled with strikers, they would go to the body when it's open this much. Dricus' hands were always up to his head whenever Strickland threw something forward. His hands went all the way up to his head and his elbows off of his body. Open body shots all day. Just simply off the jab or feinting with the lead hand could open up that right straight to the body or a jab to the body, because you'll also see when Strickland would land the jab and force Dricus to lean back because of that impact, the head will lean back, but the body is still there, right? Even when you lean back like this, your body's not moving away too much, and you know your right straight goes further than your jab. So there were many perfect opportunities for Sean Strickland to attack the body, and what that would also do is, it would gas out Dricus the more body shots land, which is ultimately what Strickland's game plan was around, getting Dricus to gas out. The body shots would have been a perfect tool in this, and it was there all night. And he could also work off the right hand. Fake the right hand after throwing those straights that we talked about, and the fake right hand can open up that left hook to the liver. There were so many things for Sean Strickland to work off of his boxing, which is his main asset, to not only headhunt, but work the body as well, which was, I think, more important than landing punches to the head for this fight. And the thing about the body shots were, Sean went to the front kicks to the body in the first round, and Dricus became more pressuring to push Strickland a little bit on the back foot, so those front kicks would not be as useful. But that's where the hands can come in. That's where he can start throwing right straight to the body, even intercepting Dricus coming in, because we do know that Dricus comes over the top with those big overhands more so than he throws uppercuts. So intercepting right straights as Dricus is moving in would have been devastating, man. Would have been huge for Sean Strickland. And eventually, we do know that Dricus is very good at adjusting in a fight. He would have went to some more uppercuts, which will leave headshot opportunities. And not only that, the body shots would have to gain respect, leaving Sean Strickland to open up with more head strikes than he already had. There was something that Dricus adjusted with in the second round after he lost the first. He started all of his entries with this duck. So he would duck and move in head first, and this got him away from the danger of the jab whenever he tried to attack, right? Whether the jab would go over his head or it would hit like the top of his head, which is not going to be too damaging. And he would get his eyes off the target because he knows he just has to go forward, right? If he can just get under the jab, Strickland's going to be there for him. And Strickland would always move away from this, but sometimes the better move to do, ironically, is to actually go forward into a tie plum. Blockade him, lock him down with a tie plum, as you know he's going to throw overhands. You know his head is all the way down there ducking, not even looking where he's going. His head is there to be caught, and a swift knee off of these tie plums would have been devastating on someone like Dricus Du Plessis. Now, Sean Strickland is not known for this. He has gone to the tie plum a couple times in his career. He has thrown some good knees in his career before. So it wasn't to be expected out of Sean Strickland to counter with something like this, but there was the opening and the adjustment to be made at this level. But even if this were to have happened, we do know that Dricus would eventually adjust to it. We do know eventually that maybe Dricus would instead fake like he's gonna go with these duck-in entries for overhands, and he would instead go for the double legs, countering this tie plum. But before that would happen, those knees would have been extremely devastating. So there's a lot to analyze here about Sean Strickland's adjustments that he could have made during the fight, and maybe even won the fight off doing this. There were so many openings from Dricus that went completely unpunished, and I'm pretty sure in a rematch, Strickland and his amazing coaches behind him would come up with a good game plan to win at these exchanges. Trust his offense more, trust his ability to exchange with Dricus more. Dricus is powerful, but he's not like a Francis Ngannou or an Alex Pereira, right? This guy can be exchanged with if you have good enough technique, if you have good enough defense, because his shot selection is not that technical. Dricus is much better at fighting at a game plan than he is being technical, right? Most of his punches are going to come looping. Most of his punches are going to come wild from crazy wide angles that could be easily countered and were easily countered by Sean Strickland many times. And even the counters that were there that Sean Strickland did not go to. Body shots were there all fight. The right straight were there at times. And just being more offensive with these punches would have credited him with a lot more damage in the fight that could have ultimately got him the win on the scorecards. It's so hard to win an MMA fight off the jab like that, because even if they are quite damaging, it's not what the judges are looking for, right? The judges are looking for some kind of big reaction from these punches. It's a reason why he lost to Jared Cannonier, and now it's another reason why he lost to Dricus Du Plessis. Even if he really did the more damage in the fight, the judges can only see what they see, right? And if he can land that right straight and get Dricus' head bopping back off of impacts like that, or land these devastating body shots. We know that judges really like to see body shots. You can't just allow Dricus to land body shots. You gotta land some yourself, you know, and it's a lot better of a game plan, I think, for Strickland to go to the body than Dricus, because he was looking for Dricus to slow down, and the body shots were a way to do so. Because of the rule set that we have, because of how the judges score a fight, it kind of goes against Strickland's style, right? If defense and just landing your shots on your opponent were a lot more emphasized, like in boxing, for an example, if the MMA scoring system was more like boxing, Strickland would not be losing any of these decisions. But because they're looking for these big punches landing and big body shots and all this stuff, they're looking for like heads moving around from impacts, the power punchers are generally going to have an advantage in the scoring system. So I hope you guys enjoyed the breakdown, and if you did, make sure to give this a like, make sure to subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and I'll see you guys in the next video.